Good morning.
Good morning.
Lovely to be here with you. I want to thank Kaywood again for his service to all of us last week and let you know that he will be speaking again in the future. And also, you will be having a guest speaker next week. And her name is Janice Coyle. I stopped there because her maiden name is Collins. And she and her husband will be here, but Janice is the speaker, and she's a Goldsmith scholar. So for those of you that like Joel Goldsmith and want a challenge, she's bringing it next week. And I ask you to get ready, be ready. She loves what she speaks about, and she's passionate about it. So I know you all are as well. It ought to be a good match. So this morning, I want to say we're going to be talking about Sabbath. And let me just say, Sabbath and Sunday are not the same thing. And that may be new news to some of you. I know it was to me when I first realized it. And it's big news to me that it's taken me years to separate the two. Because in my house, when we were growing up, Sunday was considered, quote, the Sabbath, and I did not like Sunday. Sunday to me was the worst day of the week. It meant, clothes that itched, and I didn't like that. It meant sitting quietly for at least an hour and a half, maybe two, on a Sunday. On a Sunday. It meant there would be no dancing, there's no card playing, there's no TV, there's nothing going on Sunday. And it was the day that I looked for and thought to myself, well, you better prepare yourself somehow for this, because I just would dread it. So that's how I looked upon the Sabbath. And the two were combined, as they have been for many, many years in the Christian church. The Jewish church has a different take on Sabbath. And that is where I'm coming from today. And what that is Sabbath is simply this. The Hebrew word for Sabbath simply means stop, cease, desist. And it doesn't mean to do it after the work is done. It means to do it when it's time to do it. Now, some of us, myself included, figured there wasn't going to be any rest until all the work got done. So once I accomplished the work, then I was, quote, entitled to the rest. And that word entitled was very important to me, because I couldn't make the quote, rest work if I felt like I hadn't done all the work I was supposed to get to the rest. And the way the Jewish tradition deals with Sabbath is, it is a part of the rhythm and the rest, meaning the rest, as in rest of life. And so when we look at the term Sabbath, we know that you can practice Sabbath in the minute, in the hour, in the day. And you can do it by simply saying to yourself, stop, cease and desist. This is my Sabbath. This is my time of rest. In our world, especially in our culture today, we are multitaskers and we overfunction, and you know what? Some of us take great pride in that. I can do 5 things at once. Really? Oh, do you know how to rest? Rest. Rest meaning to get into the rhythm of life. You look at life, look at nature. Look at where we are right now. Spring is the first day of spring is tomorrow, they tell us. And we have been in a time of winter, a time of rest, if you will. And now we're looking forward to a time of celebration and activity. But even in that time, there is a time of rest. That is what I'm asking you to really kind of contemplate and ponder this next week. Do you know how to say to yourself, cease, stop? Not when the work is done, but when you know it's time to stop. It's time to rest. You know that your rhythms are off because you're frantic, you're fearful, you're anxious, and you are over-functioning. Watch yourself with that. A time of Sabbath has a great many benefits to us if we would but use it, if we but understand that it is a time to stop. Now, for some of us, we can take it to an extreme. If we don't stop, what happens? Sometimes we become ill. And what does the illness do? It forces us to stop. It says, you will cease right now. The body is saying to us, stop, or I'll stop for you. And I don't know whether you've had that in your life. I think most of us have at one point or the other. And I think if we would take a look at that and simply say, wow, if I had just been more attuned to the rhythm of life, to the rest of life, to the celebration of life, and to the rest in the celebration, I would live my life in a far more balanced, peaceful, loving way. And that is the work that we are about. But we need to be mindful of this term called Sabbath. And within the term of Sabbath, this time of rest, is what Wayne Muller calls, and this book is an old book, it's been around for a long time. He calls it, when we rest, it's the incubation of wisdom. It's the time when we say, God is here now, and God is first. Not the return phone calls, not the emails, not the list of things I have to do on the front of my refrigerator or on my computer. God is first. And we know that, but we don't remember. Our fourth commandment, for those of you that do follow the commandments, is remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. And the key word there is remember. Remember there is a time to rest. You don't have to remember that it's Sunday. You don't have to remember that it's Saturday. And I know we all have calendars. Heavens, I've got 4 or 5 of them. And I'm real clear on what day it is, and what time it is, and who's on first. Most of the time. But when I do not rest, when I do not honor and remember my Sabbath and keep it holy, as in whole, then I over-function. There is no rest. It's a manic trip from Monday to Sunday, with nothing in between except my to-do list. If you find yourself in that position, simply say to yourself, and it is very simple, stop, cease, and desist. I remember speaking to you before using the metaphor of a stop sign. And that's really what this metaphor is when we talk about Sabbath. And what I think I said, and I know because I've heard it myself before, if you have a 4-way stop, and there are 4 big red signs that say, stop, most of us will tend to stop because it's a 4-way stop. It's good for everybody. We all gotta stop. But when there's a stop sign that isn't necessarily pinned on both sides with another stop, and there's no one coming, we have what we call a rolling stop. And we pause and we look both ways, just like we were told to do as children, and we roll on through. And we don't take time to stop. Now, yes, this is a metaphor. If you don't stop and you roll too often, you will find that you will get a ticket, and we all know that. And what I'm saying to you is, you're going to get a ticket too. It's going to be a great big emotional ticket that says to you, stop. If you don't, I'll stop for you. So watch your rolling stops. Watch when you say, well, I'll just have maybe a cup of coffee, and then I'll get right back to what it was I was doing prior to the cup of coffee. That's not a Sabbath. A Sabbath is a time when you say, I will do nothing else. Nothing else. It takes me back to my Sundays. Nothing else. No coffee, no walking, just be with God. Take a Sabbath and be with God. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to overthink it. You don't have to plan it in your calendar. It becomes an attitude of how you live your life. And that's how I look at Sabbath, as an attitude. It's saying, I believe and I honor and I remember the rhythm of the rest and restoring that in my life. I have an opportunity, we all do, to restore the rhythm and the rest in life. And we can do that with the simple tool of Sabbath, of using it, of honoring it. And the Sabbath is when we become empty like a reed. Empty like a reed. You've all played with reeds of grass, I'm sure. I know I have. I used to make whistles out of them. When you have a reed that's empty, you then are in the center of God. You're in the mind of God because you're not filled up with the nonsense, as I like to call it, of living. You are empty. You are an empty reed, an empty vessel for the winds of Spirit to flow in and through you in purity and grace. When we start junking it up with, quote, our responsibilities, we start to take ourselves as first and center. First and center. And Muller will say, and that, my friends, borders on idolatry. We think that we are so blooming important in our lives and in our world because we don't always put God first. We are very busy filling up our lives with things to do, people to see, places to be. And we're not taking a Sabbath to honor and remember the sacredness of the emptiness of God. Now, for some of us, we might not like that word emptiness. For others, you know that it is truly in the emptiness. That is where Spirit resides. You know this community, I love you so because you love to go into the silence. And you seem to be, from the feelings that I have, real happy in the silence. It's like a breath of fresh, clean air. Now, why do you suppose that is? Because you've taken a Sabbath. You have said, this is my time with my Maker, my God. And I'm grateful for it. And that's the other piece of Sabbath. When we go into that emptiness, that silence, that loving, peaceful space, we are grateful. Because we truly do remember we are children of God. That we are loved unconditionally. There are no strings. There are no conditions. And so I challenge you to spend more time in that reed and allow the winds of Spirit to blow in and through your reed. And you do that very simply by taking a Sabbath. And then I would ask you to come up higher and be the Sabbath. It is the greatest gift you can give another human being. To be truly empty, to be truly present in that emptiness to another human being is a marvelous gift. Try and be the Sabbath this week. Try and experience the Sabbath this week. And bring it into your life as an attitude of living and not a day of the week or a rolling stop. God bless you.